first blood, and it's already icing over.
Hey guys, and welcome to another ArtifactsCCG.com podcast, First Blood number 3, and today I'm joined by HonestlySarcastc, B. Ryan, BobbySapphire, and I am of course an audience of one.
Did you say Sassfire? Sassfire?
What's so funny about my name?
You're like the only name that's just a name. You just make us pause in the middle of it.
He's from a movie. B. Ryan.
Well, in any case, we had PAX West happen a week ago, and lots of crazy stuff came out, lots of news, and we're here today to talk about the decks that were spoiled, some of the new heroes, and yeah, just the game in general. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on PAX West. Do you think it was a good event? Do you think it was a good, just good for the game in general? Or do you think they could have done a better job with it?
The fact that they showed the stuff, let people play with it, was definitely pretty amazing. Because we finally got to actually see aspects to the game that weren't just oh, hey, here's some jank deck versus another jank deck, and there's some random person playing it that may or may not understand how to play cards. We had legit people playing in real games, and we could see the whole back and forth, and that was really, really nice. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
I'd say it was great overall. There was a great showing. The downside to a great showing, though, is that the lines were very long. I had buddies who just couldn't wait any longer. I think they waited an hour, and they said, they were about halfway there. So, it's a good and bad thing. You don't want to push away new people because the lines are so long. But, the people who already knew about the game were probably already there getting in line for, beta keys or access. So it gets some goods and some bads. I hope everybody who wanted to see everything got a chance to do it, though.
Yeah, it seemed like the lines were pretty insane, but then I also talked to a bunch of people who played every day, so I think it probably just equaled out. If you really wanted to play, you were gonna get some games in. But it looks sweet, and it's nice to have some more gameplay other than those two turn videos that we had to work with previously, which is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. We even got to see that streamed match with the Spectator mode that was commentated. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it's pretty good. I think their Spectator client is rather refined for how early the game is. I think it's good that they're figuring this out now. Some companies might have left the Spectator aspect of the game till the very end to throw it into the code, but they already had a mode prepared. You can see both players' hands pretty well. See the whole board. I think it's looking good.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was going to be a thing. So seeing that, I thought was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
being involved in Dota 2, they had live matchmaking, spectating in that game. You could just watch your friends' games, move around the map, do all that sort of stuff. So I'd imagine they'll have something similar for this, and it's looking good. I'll be curious to see whether they go the route in Dota 2 where you can watch professional matches in client. I think that would be cool. As I've stated before, they can have random item drops, random card drops, or whatever. When a big annihilation get cast, maybe they'll just throw out random annihilation alt arts to people. But we'll see what it looks like when the game first releases. It took a while for a lot of that stuff to get into Dota 2, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know how they would do the hand viewing on anything other than a professional match where the players are sequestered. It doesn't make sense to be able to see hands in any other venue.
I think what they typically would do in the Dota 2 client is they'd have a 5-minute delay, but for a much longer game that is a MOBA, that makes sense. For a card game where you can see a card that's in their hand on round 1 could be in their hand on round 6, I guess no matter how long the delay is, it's still going to be a problem.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how they make that choice. But in any case, there were 4 different decks that they let people play, and we figured we'd go ahead and go through the decks, give our thoughts on them. you've already seen all the spoiled card lists, so we don't need to go over that. But we can give some of our, thoughts on the archetypes, and just how good we think they actually are, what we prefer, things like that. So we're gonna start with the aggro deck. The blue-black runs some interesting cards. It looks like it has a very interesting game playstyle where it doesn't look like its heroes could do anything in one-on-one fights whatsoever. The only exception being something like Sorla Khan. But then you're seeing some creep spawning abilities with the Assault Ladders from Sorla Khan and the Disciple of Nevermore to really buff up the damage of all of these weak creeps. What do you guys think of this archetype style? Do you think?
I mean, when I see black and blue, I definitely don't really actually think of aggro. Now, when I read the description for the deck, it's more about hitting the opponent's tower and not necessarily having like an aggressive board. Just being more about direct damage and blowing up the towers really quick. So in that regard, it's kind of a different aspect of aggro than I would have originally anticipated. When I think of aggro, I think of red. I think of, bristleback and these big meaty bodies like Axe, just pounding away at their troops. But this is more focused on dealing direct damage to their towers and bursting it down. It's a very interesting aspect. It's kind of really surprising that they would choose this deck to premiere. It's a bit more complicated, in my opinion, to play. It's a very harder game strategy to outburst your opponent with cards than just play big bodies on the board and kind of win. So I think that was kind of a cool aspect to see, a different style of aggro than you're normally used to seeing.
It kind of reminds me of I think the theory there was because they went so cheap with stuff and the small dudes that they were essentially playing like red deck wins, whereas here's a bunch of small crappy things, and if you can't deal with a bunch of small crappy things, they run you over. Because that's really how red deck wins won.
Right, but red deck wins is like a Magic deck for people who this is their first CCG or they're not familiar. But the thing with red deck wins is those things actually hit you hard. They basically reach a tipping point where they start doing enough damage when there's enough of them. Whereas this deck, I don't. I think that there's a lot of medium cards in here that I for strafing run to have to combo with conflagration to really deal with creeps. It just, I don't know. It just seems like if you're gonna play blue and have these underpowered heroes that you want some of the big AoE spells. And this build didn't impress me too much. But I do like Steam Cannon. I'm a big fan of Steam Cannon.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that card?
I like the I don't remember what they're called. They're like turrets. You know what I mean? The
improvements?
Yeah, improvements. That's the word. Sorry. I like that you can put them in any lane. I really like that mechanic that they can go in any lane. They just have to be cast from the hand in the lane that the hero's from. And I just think piercing damage is really sweet. So to be able to run that every round, and I don't think 7 is too costly to be able to do that, and it can start adding up, especially when combined with blue spells that are also dealing damage. Over a great area, and then having Steam Cannon clean up under armor to kill people I really like that effect, and it's reusable at 7 costs, so I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know what Steam Cannon does, if you're just listening to the podcast, it's a 7 cost improvement that can deal 4 piercing damage to a unit in any lane. So it's a once per turn ability. It's definitely that's a strange improvement in that you can play it in any lane and then it can target any lane.
Yeah.
So lots of versatility there. One thing that I will point out about this list that I thought was really neat, actually, when you look at it, is that they have Crystal Maiden in there, but she spawns in the 5th or the 3rd round, I guess, the round of 5 mana. And if you consider her aura and what that means for the combo in the deck, it's actually very interesting. So if you toss her in the 3rd lane, it doesn't matter if your opponent can kill her or not, because she's not going to die until the very end of the round. And her passive makes the first spell you play in each lane cost 2 less. So at that point, when you have 5 mana, you can play the Dimensional Portal for 2, and play a Disciple of Nevermore or Assault Ladders for the remaining 3 mana. So that's, if in theory all 3 of those creeps are hitting the tower, that's 12 damage going into the tower that round. The Disciple of Nevermore buffs each of your guys' attacks by 2. So does the Assault Ladders, but only when you're attacking the tower in the case of the Assault Ladders. So I thought that was interesting. Even if you don't get the Dimensional Portal, you could still do a card like Better Late Than Never, toss down an untested Grunt, things like that. I don't know what you guys think of it.
No, I think that's just good strategery. Put it like timing the Crystal Maiden so she's where you want to be, and using that passive ability as much as possible. I think that'll be a staple move for her.
Yeah, Frostbite somebody, then Ogladai Vandal. It's like boom.
Yep. I love Ogladai Vandal. That's
that guy's amazing.
4 for 4 who deals 4 to the tower when you play him.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say the deck doesn't have that many spells actually. That I don't know. Crystal Maiden might not get enough value in this deck if you don't draw like the right spell that you want at the right time.
It is cool though that they run. It looks like 9 1-cost spells, and what that means is that you can actually play. I think the way Crystal Maiden is worded is you gain 2 mana after casting your first spell, so you could play a 1-cost spell and actually gain a mana from it. So that could come into play where, you know, in the round of 6, you could play a 1-cost spell and then drop the Steam Cannon because you'll now have 7 mana on your tower.
Well, it says restore 2.
Yeah, it says
It does
restore.
not
You
gain
don't gain extra.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious if part of me wants to say that it might work that way just because, like, why else toss in all of those 1-cost cards?
I mean, you could play like
Yeah,
a 3-drop and then play a 1-drop, restore 2.
Right.
And then play 2-drop or something.
Yeah, it'll be, yeah, we'll have to see if Restore goes above. One thing that I thought was interesting about this list, and like kind of going along with what you just said and what Joe said earlier about like the small nature of red deck wins, is it feels like that this deck, especially of the 4, is skewed to be low cost. So it's sort of like a training wheels, like, you know, I think we've talked about, or I'm sure it's been talked about, that there's no mulligans. And so like when you're jammed up with this hand of high cost spells, it can feel like you're not even playing. So for this to be like the demo deck at PAX, they wanted people to be able to play their spells. They didn't want to have people like pass a whole bunch, because it definitely feels like a lower curve to me. I don't know what you think. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that one demo that we watched where the guy drew all like 7s and 6s, and the demo like video ended before he like literally played anything, and we're just sitting there like, what was that?
I've definitely had Magic games like that where I lost before playing a spell. It's just like you get a bad mulligan or you bet a bad keep, and it's just over before it begins.
Yeah.
One of the big things for the deck though is so it has 12 blue spells that are cost 3 or less. So Zeus could realistically get a couple spells in to do the AoE damage to clear the guys in front of him. Like creep wise at least, because he could just be like, all right, here's a strafing run. Now all of the minions took 2. He's gonna ping the minions in front of him and the neighbors. So they're at 3. If he plays one more, then boom, like they're all gone, they're cleared out the way. So him plus whatever guy next to him is going to be in a good spot there if they're being like blocked by minions.
Mm-hmm.
And like since all these guys are kind of tiny except for Sorla, since the opponent's guy's not likely to die, they kind of get stuck in that area. So maybe they're hitting your base or one random minion, and then like any minions being spawned are just coming in front of your guys. So then you could actually just more easily clear the path to go through and just never have to fight those heroes.
Yeah, I do think that it's a good thing to point out how well the cheap cost spells can work with Zeus, dealing that piercing damage. Also, I think it's worth noting before we move on here, obviously we expect them in a demo deck to have at least decently smart choices, but I think that they made the correct choices here in running 6 items that only cost 3, and then 3 7-cost items. So in a deck like this, as you said, they're kind of ignoring the opponent's heroes, it looks like. So taking cheap items is would seem very necessary to me, or else you're just I mean, your item deck would do essentially nothing for you.
There was another thing I also randomly saw, and it was just while scrolling through the cards. There's actually only 2 cards in the deck that are actually rare, and that is Steam Cannon and I believe the Conflagration. So it's a very budget deck too. It's very cool that you could just build this probably like a couple packs.
For anyone who doesn't know, we're referencing these lists on artifactbuff.com. So we'd highly advise you go check it out. They have the PAX decks on there and a very useful interface that you can view each of the different cards that were spoiled in the list and things like that.
We'll have the links posted to that on the show notes on the iTunes app and on our website and also in the YouTube comment section. So if you're listening along wherever you are, you can find these links. One thing about the item decks, I'm sure we'll get to them, is like they all have 3 leather armor and 3 traveler's cloak. So they definitely skewed cheap with things that you can buy. But we should probably move on because we've spent a lot of time on that one deck.
So the next deck, we got Econ Ramp. Looks pretty, kind of what you'd expect out of a black deck. They have these cards, these Iron Fog gold mines that are giving you gold each round, this payday that doubles your gold, and then you just get all this gold and you drop a card like Revtail Convoy, which, for those who don't know, it's this creep that has 0 attack, 20 health, but his attack is equal to half of your gold, which is interesting. So potentially, I mean, to me that just seems nuts. Like 5 cost for 20 health. Like, I don't care if his attack is low. 20 health is like way more than anything we've seen in this game. Like, even look at the deck runs these 3 Thunderhide packs, which cost 8 and only have 14 health. So the Reptile Convoy, if nothing else, is an extremely effective blocker. I don't know what you guys have to say.
All right, well, I like Thunderhide pack. 14-14, what a beast.
Oh, days. Happy days. Reptile's like really interesting because, like, especially with payday and the ability to double your gold. So, like, all of a sudden, this guy's like, let's say a 720 or probably took some hits by that point. It's like, oh, okay, well, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, well, here's a payday. Here's a second one. And your tower's gone. Like, yeah.
Well, yeah, if you were able to, like, you're sitting on, like, what, 10 gold, and then you, like, payday to 20, and then you payday to 40, that could be nuts if you ever draw a couple at the same time. Holy
yeah, it's just like a crazy pump. It's it gets out of control. I like that Iron Frog gold mine too. I think that's a good one for cheap. I like anything that you can play round 1, especially in any lane. You can dump it in that, wherever you need it.
Efficiency wise, like, Iron Fog Gold Mine seems ridiculous. Like, when you think, okay, I've got these items that are like, all right, +2 attack, +4 health, or +1 armor. So you're like, all right, well, this Iron Fog in theory is going to afford me one of those every round. And then, like, realistically, they had some of the bigger ones. Like, they had Apotheos Blade and Horn of the Alpha, which just cost too much, like, in comparison to, like, what Iron Fog's getting you. But just like some of those cheap things, like 3 cost for 4 health item is just like, all right, and it's going to continue to do that in theory over time.
Apotheosis Blade is so insane that, like, just being able to snag it is such a huge, like, if you have a deck that can buy that consistently, like, I think you're going to be so far ahead.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you can, like, kill a lane with Reptile, and then after that, spend your gold to buy an Apotheosis or a Horn of the Alpha, and then finish off another lane. Seems like it could be strong. We did see some new heroes in this list. We're not going to be talking about all of them, but I think it's worth talking about this Chen and his Holy Persuasion. To me,
it's pretty cool.
Seems like a nuts ability. Like, I'm just going to take one of your creeps. It's just innate to my character. I don't even need to draw a card. I don't know what you guys think of that.
Chin feels kind of like a safety precaution for if your opponent's playing Chin, because you have, like, these big allies like the Reptile Convoy and the Thunderhide pack, and if your opponent's playing Chen and they just steal them from you, it can pretty much just lose you the game. Yeah, at least that's what it seems like to me. So you kind of counter that by running your own Chen and saying, all right, you steal it, I'll just steal it right back.
Yeah, Chen just being in the meta makes you have to think twice about playing any big creep. It'll be interesting to see how he comes and goes when a meta is established.
His hero card's also interesting. The 7 cost, fully heal each ally, give allies damage immunity this round. One question I have is, how does that interact with condemn effects? I would think that condemn effects would still work because they're not necessarily dealing damage, but even aside from that, that card still seems just like crazy to be like, oh, you can't do anything to any of my characters this round in a lane.
Yep. Cost 7 though. 7's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
I want you to end the game at that point.
Yeah, when you say 7, does this card actually help you win the game? It's more like a board like thing. You know, you're trading maybe with this card. So I don't know. It's not a really big move for 7.
I mean, it depends on if like you're battling over a lane. Like if you're in a lock, it's gonna break the lock. You know, it could potentially break the lock. If all your guys aren't gonna die and all their characters are gonna die, you know, swings that lane pretty heavily, it seems.
Yeah.
You know, in Magic, there's a lot of like green, like in Limited, you get green white versus green white, and you're like, Jesus, this game is gonna take forever because we're just gonna keep playing creatures and bash them into each other, and this seems to break that.
Yeah, I could see that. Another thing I want to talk on before we move on is Salamania's Favor. So the ability to give a tower +2 mana permanently as an upgrade seems pretty nice. This deck, of all the decks, at least I believe so, seems to have the highest cost curve with 6 5s, 3 6s, and like 6 7s and 3 8s. Like, that's a really high cost curve. I guess they're kind of counting on the Salamania's Favor, but there's only 3 of those in the deck. So I'd be interested to see if they're not spoiling other cards that can help out with that. I don't know if you guys are aware of any other spoiled cards that help out with mana gain. But
not specifically off the top of my head.
Yeah, but in any case,
green blue sure, but not. I only know of Salamania's and Crystal Maiden.
Well,
and I like that that's an improvement, so you can like chuck it down. Like if you have a green hero in the first lane, you could chuck it down to the third lane and hook up the mana that round that it comes into play.
Yeah, improvements are just like so versatile, it seems.
Sweet. All right, let's talk about blue-red control.
Oh, hold on one second.
Okay.
Mist of Avernus was in that deck, and that thing is ridiculous. The modify your allies with +1 attack before the action phase is obscene. Like, your shit just gets real big, and like because each of the separate boards was a separate action phase, you're like, all right, well, my green dude's on board 1, I'll throw this into board 2, and then it's like they get the pump once they shift over, and it's nuts. But that card's gonna be really, really good. All right, that's it.
All right.
So yeah, the control deck they have here listed looks, I mean, kind of what you'd expect out of control, although also an extremely high cost curve deck.
Yeah.
Some of these spells look like extremely good board clears. So
yeah.
Some, yeah.
All of them. It seems interesting to me though. They kind of call it a control deck, but so many of their board clears are super expensive. I don't know if the game just doesn't have cheaper board clear. I guess they have Tower Barrage in there, kind of can clear and clear the deck as well. But if you're relying on these 5, 6, 7 cost board clears, it seems like you could lose the game basically before then.
Maybe, but they got red. They got Bristleback. He's supposed to carry everything, right?
I mean, that's the idea, right? Take you into the mid game, late game. especially with new orders, like being able to let you try and like get kills out of Bristleback, which is what he wants, which is really nice. But I think that's just like the way they build blue is to have these high cost sweepers, and if blue stabilizes, it's just like classic control in any CCG. It's like once they stabilize, it could be like just overwhelming that you'll never deal those last points if they do. I think Eclipse is really cool. It says repeat. It's cost 6, repeat one time for each charge, deal 3 piercing damage to a random enemy. And then if you read Luna's passive ability is Lucent Beam, and it's before the action phase, deal 1 piercing damage to a random enemy and add a charge counter to each Eclipse card in your hand or deck. So you want her on table, as quickly as possible, triggering that passive ability as many times as possible to make Eclipse just go nuts. And hopefully take you into the time where you can cast that Time of Triumph, which just looks absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Time Triumph indeed looks ridiculous. Like, I don't know how that costs 8. It feels like it would cost more.
8's a lot, but yeah, it feels like it should cost more.
Well, like, we have that other card that says your heroes gain cleave. Clear the deck costs 4, and that's just for +4 cleave. And
For one round.
yeah, for one round. I was like, here's the stuff permanently. And like siege and attack and armor, and I was just like, what the hell? Okay. Oh wait, it's all of my dudes? Alright. Or all of my heroes.
Yeah, if you put a bunch of those scrolls like Jonathan talked about last time, and just like set up, drop all your heroes in one lane, Time of Triumph, do 80, good game.
280.
Quick 80.
Yeah, and
Oh.
the +4 siege could be clutch in a game
I love
where
siege.
they're blocking your heroes. Just to sneak through the last few damage, if you can get like 8 siege through, could be
Yeah,
nice.
I love that the ramp deck had Red Mist Maul, which is equipped hero, has +2 attack and +5 siege for 10 gold. That card just seems great, and I think siege is going to be a really sweet ability that you're going to want your guys to have if you can find it. It doesn't seem like there's too many ways to give people siege, but it seems pretty awesome.
Yeah. Also, this Red Mist Pillager in the deck seems kind of nice. If you can keep that card alive and it keeps hitting the tower, like, and then all of the pillagers keep spawning more pillagers.
It could get out of hand.
Especially, I think Ventriloquy seems like a pretty decent card to protect your pillager. Even if you like can't place it to the side of the lane, so you have to drop it in front of somebody, you could at least then, taunt with another one of your units, keep the red pit. Although at that point you're not killing the tower, so maybe I'm just crazy. But I don't know. If you can keep that card like protected, it seems like it would go ham.
Yeah, it seems really good when you Echo Slam and their board goes away.
Yeah.
I also love that they included 3 Foresight in here, which is like any control player from like any other CCG's wet dream is just draw 2 cards. It's just like that's what every control player wants to see is like a card that draws more cards.
So like, I really wish they would have just put Axe in here and not put this damn Keith guy, but I feel like it may have just been too broken. Because like, Axe's, they showed Axe's card, and Axe's card is disgusting, and it would clear the way so that you could kill with Red Mist Pillagers and your dudes, but
Yeah, I mean, this isn't for a tournament. It's like to teach people the game.
yeah,
Right.
make everything plush face.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Make some kid who's like gets his first CG ever get like mopped
Get
by
crushed.
Axe and Bristleback in round 1. Like the first game he ever plays is like all his heroes are dead. He's gonna wait 2 turns for everyone to come back. It's like, I don't want to play this anymore. Like gets up and walks off in the middle of the stream.
At that point, just give her to Bristleback too. But like, they put Luna, Zeus, and EarthShaker. You might, like, they're like, oh, this deck does this stuff, and it's like, well, here's Fighting Instinct. Modify a hero with +1 attack and +1 armor for 5. You're like, I just played Time of Triumph for 8. Like,
Yeah, that card seems super underwhelming. We were going to talk about it later, but I got to like pick which new red character, and I was like, yeah, I can't bring Keith because Fighting Instinct is so depressing. It's like, what are we going to say about it? Just that it's pretty underwhelming. But yeah, whatever. I would love to know the data on like which decks did well over the week. Like if they recorded all the games, like the way they say that the games are supposed to spawn their own data. I would love to see which deck did the best out of all these.
Yeah. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get on to this one last deck we have here called Armored Cleave. And this one they did give a max, so woohoo.
There you go.
oh yeah, did they just not duplicate? Any of them?
I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like
No,
there's-
Lycan's in 2 of them.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they love Lycan, huh?
Bastards.
Man,
And Zeus. Zeus was as well.
that
But
Berserker's
in
call seems
Commander.
so good. Just battle all of your enemy neighbors with the red hero.
Yeah, being able to like deal your damage to multiple people if you're a big.
You cut out.
Oh, I did. I just think Berserker Call is good. Just being able to like sacrifice one of your guys to kill multiple others.
Yeah, and then if you got armor, like your bristleback or axe, you're just like, oh, look, machine gun, like 3 of these dudes. Get out of my ways.
Yeah, you got that Bristleback. Of course, they don't have him in this list, but if Bristleback killed a couple heroes, he's looking at like 4 armor, and you just Berserker's Call against 3 targets and save 12 health from that 4 armor. Seems good.
Yeah, armor seems insane.
Yeah, I think the other strength of this card is being able to potentially wipe out the only opponent's like hero in the lane and prevent them from playing, any cards for the rest of the turn. So like your first action, you're just like Berserker Call, and the other opponent's like, well, I guess I can't play anything anymore. And
Yeah.
it's pretty big.
Also,
I think that's a nice combo between Axe and Legion Commander because you get duel for 2 to do something similar and the Berserker's Call. So you just have a lot of that. You have 6 cards in your deck that could just murder someone before they even get to play a spell, which is great.
We're also talking about how armor helps prevent you taking damage during Berserker's Call, but this deck actually has 3 Divine Purpose, which is this card that modify a unit with damage immunity. So it seems like modify means permanent, so for the rest of the game, this unit does not take damage. So do that with Berserker's Call, and
yeah, that
seems
seems
pretty good.
Seems okay.
Man, it seems like during like a mirror match of this deck, like your opponent draws their Divine Purpose and you don't, and you're just like, well, this sucks.
Yeah, and what happens when both people do? Like, what even happens?
That's when you need Siege.
Right? Not enough red mist malls in this deck.
Exactly. Send it back.
Send it back.
Mercenary Exiles is also an interesting card in here. So it has an active that has a cooldown of 2, but it spend all of your gold to modify Mercenary Exiles with plus X attack and plus X health, where X is half the gold spent. They start out at 2/1/4, and what intrigues me most about this card is that it only costs 3. So at the very least, it seems like it's a decent blocker. It has 5 effective health. You just toss it in front of a unit, prevent some damage to your tower. But in theory, if you just have a ton of gold from later on in a game, this card could just really help close out for super cheap. Just like toss it down, consume like 20 gold, and all of a sudden I have a 12 attack creep that was also effective early on in the game. So it seems like a really nice dual purpose card.
Yeah, or just like you jump out to an early lead with duel. Like I gotta imagine, with Axe on the table starting round 1, you just want to hit duel. Like duel's what you pray for, especially if you draw the Mercenary Exile.
I wonder how they call this deck Armored Cleave and it has no Time of Triumph. I see like no armor cards in one cleave card.
Well, Grand Melee
Divine
is...
Purpose is armor.
Grand Melee is the cleave card.
Yeah, I get it.
I guess you get Smeevil Blacksmith for an armor.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're kind of counting Divine Purpose as this like armor effect. That's kind of why they're calling it. But you're right. It seems like they would have Time of Triumph in the deck.
Well, like they have Salamini's Favor, and then they're like, Salamini's Favor, yeah, let's just Berserker's Collar over Conscript or Divine Purpose, and yeah. Not this 8 cost thing that just like, oh, look, I probably won the game.
Yeah, again, I think that these are just like super training wheel stacks. They're just like starters. They're not meant to be competitive in any way.
I know, but it goes against like the greens.
Well, they're not in your grain. They're trying to get people to buy and play their game. You just want to beat people. Your favorite thing is to beat up on scrubs so that they never want to play again. So they have literally the opposite.
I want all 4 decks to be great so that you could like punish people and make comebacks and not like cry inside when your opponent Time of Triumphs and you're like, why don't I have that card?
So, real quick before we move on to the next section of our podcast, just rapid fire. If you had to pick one of these decks to play, if you had been at PAX West, what would you have picked? I'll go first. I think I would have played the Econ ramp just because I think it would be fun to like payday, hit you for 20 with Revtail.
Yeah, it does sound fun. I'd go blue red because I think that's me. That's like my color combo for Magic, and I feel like this isn't far off of that. And Time of Triumph, Thunder God's Wrath, Echo Slam, EarthShaker. It's just like all cards that look awesome to me.
I'm also going blue-red because Time of Triumph and a bunch of AoE wipes.
I would say blue-red, but I'll mix it up. I'll say black-blue because I like payday. I want to get paid.
Pay me.
I say black-green.
Yeah. I was like,
so
I went to go look at black-blue. I'm like, what?
Well, in any case, there were 21 new heroes spoiled at this event. And we all went through and picked a card, each from a different color. So let's go ahead and start with your pick, Honestly Sarcastic.
EarthShaker? What? So, for anyone who hasn't read EarthShaker yet, this guy, to me, is kind of nutty. So he's only 2 attack and 7 health, but his ability, based on the picture that was shown, was active 4. So you don't get to use it for a while, but he stuns his enemy neighbors this round. So the guy across from him and the 2 guys directly to the left and right, or one left and one right, get stunned. So stunned is essentially you don't deal your damage back, so you're disarmed and you're silenced. You can't play spells of that color or that hero. So like if that's the only hero in the lane, they're screwed. And then he's got that fancy hero card that is Echo Slam, and it costs 7, but it deals damage to each enemy equal to the number of enemies. So, oh cool, you have 5 or 6 guys and they're probably all gone. Like heroes might survive that, but pretty much everyone else dying. Sounds smexy.
Yeah, it does seem pretty good. I think my only concern about that is potentially having a 7 card or a 7 cost card that's pretty much dead if your opponent isn't a wide deck. In theory, if they just have a couple heroes in a lane, it could be like, ooh, pay 7, deal 2 damage to each of your characters.
Can we just give up that lane?
Yeah, I agree. His card is a lot more underwhelming than his ability, but his ability is sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Free stun, let's go. So what about you, Bobby?
So I had red, and there was only a couple new red characters, and mine's the only one that doesn't have its ability spoiled. Like I'm the underwhelming one that it's just like his card. But so 710 is like a pretty good stat line. Like, it's not.
You want to name the card?
Oh, I haven't said Ursa yet. All right, so it's Ursa. My bad. I was working on getting the card on the video here. So my card's Ursa. It's a 710 red hero with an unknown ability as of yet. But his card is in Rage. And so I have like sort of the opposite feeling, that I had at EarthShaker. Give a red hero +4 attack and +4 armor this round, and it just seems like a very solid pump. Like 4 attack on its own is great, but that 4 armor, if you're going up against another hero, I got to imagine that making Ursa an 11-10, even like in that second round where you have 4 mana, and that 4 armor is going to keep him alive and kill someone else's hero. A good percentage of the time, especially if you're facing off against a non-red hero. So I think it's pretty good. And then the more red guys you have, obviously the stronger it is. So I just like that in a red, maybe in a mono red type situation. I can see Ursa being in there with Bristleback, Axe, and Legion Commander, and whomever else.
Yeah, that is actually one interesting thing about a lot of the red heroes that have been spoiled, is their cards say target a red hero and do X a lot of the time, like Keef and Axe, and now Ursa. It seems like red is almost super incentivized to just be very heavy in one color. But I don't know. Of course, you need a character of a color to even cast a card, but you couldn't like Berserker's Call with like Phantom Assassin or anything like that. So it's interesting that there's so many of these in the red color.
Yeah, I
It's
think
probably just because they're fat.
Yeah, I think of all, I think from what we've seen, red lends itself to the most likely to be monocolored because of that trigger. Give a red hero XYZ.
What about you, Brian?
So I had green, and I chose the mysterious Fahrvhan-the-Dreamer. 411 stat line is pretty solid, especially with a lot of health. Can kind of survive. It leads itself to be pumped up in the attack area. And its effect is, it's a passive effect that's always active, and his Fahrvhan's allied neighbors have +1 armor. And as we've already discussed, armor is really strong in this game, and lends itself to, to having, your minions surviving longer, your fellow, heroes right next to you. It really synergizes well in a wide deck, and I could see it, comboing with somebody like Lycan, who pumps up the attack of his neighbors. And speaking of Lycan, and the Fahrvhan card, his card is an ally, summoned ally, Prowler Vanguard, who stat line is 0/8, and also gives allied neighbors +1 armor. So very good blocker, and lends itself to be pumped up by something like Lycan or one of the other green pump up spells. I think Fahrvhan's one of the pretty good heroes to include in any wide green deck. I think the Lycan Fahrvhan combo could be pretty much a staple, maybe, from what we've seen so far in some sort of wide ally deck. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that it'll be an excellent character to toss in a lane that your opponent's winning in, to just stall them out. Even if it's not him, having a 0/8 blocker that could not only block his own lane, but potentially keep one of his neighbors surviving that round, to just buy time. Like, you toss Fahrvhan in there, toss one of his creeps next to him, and both of them survive that lane, that round, and then the next round they both survive again, or they might die the next round. It seems like you could buy a lot of time for your deck.
Yeah, and even just buy time, like to get, maybe if you're on a creep plan, to like draw your pumps, and then all of a sudden you can make him offensive. Some of those cards that we saw when looking at the PAX decks, giving allies +2 attack or something, and be able to turn the tide. Seems like a pretty interesting control card.
I'm not a fan. I don't like that 4-drop. Like, I don't want a 0/8 that gives the guys next to him 1 armor. Like, if it gave all of the allies in that lane an armor, I'd be like, okay. But I'd rather just have the Rhino.
What if you got that Mist of Avernus, though?
So
That's
you
a
get
1 attack.
Yeah, it's like 1 attack.
And then the next turn it's 2, and then there's 3.
Yeah, but the Rhino gives +3 attack and +3 cleave for his ability. Is it Magnus? Yeah, Magnus. Like, I'd rather just have that. He has the armor for himself. Forget my friends. Like, those guys can die. Protect myself. I don't know. I just really like +3 attack and +3 cleave.
Yeah.
That just seems ridiculous.
I agree that it's underwhelming in a vacuum, but if you're building a deck to spread it on, like add power to creeps, I think there's potential there. But yeah, it's not. I don't think it's like OP or anything.
Yeah, like, I'm fine with his ability. I just really dislike Prowler Vanguard. Like, I don't know, 4 for 0/8. I guess if you want to just tank something, you could, but like, you can't really tank against a red guy for long.
Yeah, red guys
tank against
killing
blue
that,
guys for
yeah.
forever. Like, sure, he's gonna survive 4 rounds, versus any of those blue guys. But blue guys are just like, oh, there's some guy not killing me. Thanks. Like, give me time. Luna?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, I'm safe. So I don't know. I just don't like the 0/8. I need it to have like at least attack or something on there.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I got black, and the character I chose is Necrophos. So he's 5'6". His passive ability is whenever one of his enemy neighbors dies, he gains a permanent health. And then his card is Heartstopper Aura, which is 4 cost, and it gives him a passive, or modifies a black hero with a passive that deals 2 piercing damage to his enemy neighbors before the action phase. The reason why I picked him is, it's kind of interesting that over the course of the game he could build this massive health pool. But the main reason is the Heartstopper Aura seems like it could be an incredibly powerful card. Just being able to deal 2 piercing damage before the round even begins in a lane could, if you are redeploying Necrophos and he has like 1 or even like 2 Heartstopper Auras on him, and you see a lane where your opponent's, a hero is at like, 2 health from death or 4 health from death, and you just toss him into that lane, and then before they can do anything, no matter what, it doesn't matter who has initiative, just kill them. Seems incredibly powerful to me. His stats leave something to be desired, but I just think that that card looks like it could be pretty good.
Yeah, you could even run him as your only black character and just continually play that on him, and then drop him into lanes to murder all the creeps and all the people. What do you think about that, John?
I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in murdering creeps. I merely defeat them and send them back to the fountain.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, no. I think the stats are fine. Like, realistically, we've seen the black characters to be in that, like, 6'5", 5'6", 8'6", 6'9" range. So it's a little under, but in theory, if he's fighting against minion or melee creeps, then he's really only taking 1 damage as he grows, and so he'll die at some point, comes back, and he's maintained all that health. It's like having half of a Stonehall cloak. Stonehall cloak. Because that's the item where you get 4 health, and then at the end of combat phase you get +2 health. So it's not just that, because if anyone else dies for the other 2 guys, like, so he could be getting up to 3 health a round. Seems pretty good. The Heartstopper is really slow, but once you throw that on, like, it does get really annoying. People kind of forget about it, and when you have melee creeps bashing into each other, if he has that on, then he's clearing the path at times for your own dudes. And 2 Pierce is really strong, as we saw from some of those red. We saw that red creep that was 4/2/2. So just bypassing the armor on that seems great. Killing the red mist villagers. Just stuff like that just seems pretty amazing, especially since melee creep gets spawned into random areas. So if you do have 2 of them, any melee creep getting jumped in front of him, he's going to kill them, get the health, and then continue on with his life.
Yeah, if you can buff his attack as well, that's one nice thing. You only really need to get an aggressive item on him, and in theory, he's going to give himself his own health item. He's going to be a pretty strong force to deal with. But yeah, there's a wealth of new heroes that we did not talk about. You can find lists. There's a great Reddit thread. We'll link stuff in the video. But moving on, they announced recently that there's going to be a beta in October. And I believe people who played it at PAX got an opportunity to get a beta key, and people who went to TI got the beta key.
Yeah.
So that's extremely exciting. I know that we're looking in line to have access hopefully in October. To bring you that content as soon as we can. What do you guys think of this? Do you think October is a good time for beta? It's a month ahead, or do you wish it would have been sooner?
I wish it would be right now, but I bought a beta key, so it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also bought beta key. I mean, obviously, actually, I don't know if I wish it would now. I'm kind of busy right now, so October is kind of free in my calendar, so I'm kind of excited for it.
That's fair. What about you guys?
I'm holding a 4-day-old baby, so like no time is a good time. I'm just gonna be struggling to to find time to game, but I'll get it done. I'm ready whenever it's ready. I'm ready for you, Artifact. I'm coming for you.
Yep. So yeah, I'm excited for that. We'll finally be able to, post videos with footage of the game, do our own stuff, start messing around with deck building, do deck techs. It's going to be an exciting time for Artifact. And I think that the hype meter will definitely skyrocket once that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
NDAs get pulled, more details come out. Yeah, I'm just pumped for Artifact. Lots of good stuff happening.
Sweet.
Tournaments.
Yeah, tournaments.
Can't wait for the tournaments, man.
Yeah,
I just want to play cards.
Yeah, I just hope it catches on. I don't want to play another game where like you're fighting to find people to play.
I don't know, man. There's $1 million, so maybe after that it could die out if they don't have other ones. But like, I think for that first quarter up through that, there's gonna be a bunch of people.
I don't know.
Getting
Games have given
played.
away a lot of money before. I know $1 million is obviously ridiculous in terms of by comparison, but I think a lot of people who play CCGs also get turned off by the cash tournament aspect of it. So I don't know. I hope that it sticks. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the digital aspect of it will help in terms of reaching a larger audience. I would hope, and I know there's a lot of frustration out in the digital CCG community in terms of there's not really. I mean, other than Hearthstone, I mean, all the other ones kind of struggle to maintain its status. I mean, a lot of them kind of come and go. There's like Gwent, and, Elder Scrolls. And, they really struggle to maintain. And I think, they're craving something a little bit deeper. And I'm hoping, they're open to Artifact and the fact that it is a lot more complex and deep of a game rather than, Hearthstone. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like what I saw so far, so I think we're relatively safe. Between that and the money, you're definitely going to get a bunch of people diving in at the beginning. And just kind of see where it shakes out from there. But Valve's been running Dota, and people just love these games. So I feel like we're in a safe place.
Yeah. Also, I don't know that we've really talked much about this, but the game looks beautiful. Like the effects that were showed off at PAX are crazy. Like when Duel gets cast and there's like a literal arena being put on the screen and the two heroes clash together.
Yeah, they did a good job. It's a good looking game, for sure.
So,
it feels like playing a video game, card game.
Yeah, so I think the game's looking really polished. So I think that's, just the degree of, the sheer quality of the game. I think is going to help it out in comparison to like some of the other online CCGs. That I don't know. To me, like Gwent's interface and stuff like that just don't look appealing. Even Hearthstone is just kind of meh for me.
I'm gonna feel bad for the shoutcasters who eventually have to say what's going on and different stuff, because I just feel like from what I've watched there was just so much happening that if anyone was just like, oh, I'm watching this card game thing, I know nothing about what's going on, I don't know, there's just gonna be all these animations and different things, and I'm gonna be really intrigued to see how shoutcasting goes once they start having actual events and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Well, in any case, if you guys have specific content you want to see once October comes around and we get our hands on this beta, let us know. You can post in the comment section in YouTube. Just give us an idea. We also have a website, artifactccg.com. So if you want to see a specific type of articles, give us an idea of what you want, and we'll do our best to fulfill that need. And yeah, this has been the third First Blood podcast, brought to you by artifactccg.com. And
Jesus.
Oh, life's hard.
It's so
Have a
hard.
good day.
All right.
deuces.
Good games.